So, Lagia, we're going to get started in a second. DeAndre, Yahushamar Lataba Shim Yahushua says. Nazamanah, Yahushamar Lataba Shim Yahushua says. The water of y'all for tapping in. I appreciate it. Just give me a second. We're going to get started in a second. Shalom, Israel. Yahba Shemal Shabrak a thumb to the brothers. Yahweh Shamar a thumb by Shemal Shah to the sisters. I'm Priest Officer Karan Yala, the ISUPK under Commander General Yohana. Welcome to another installment of Criminals of the Caucasus. Excuse me. I'm just now getting over the flu. You understand? So bear with me. Be coughing here and there. You understand? Salakia, I ain't been active for the past week, you know what I'm saying? But we're going to get back to it rocking and rolling, right? So without further ado, I got a double whammy for y'all, you understand? We got two devils today, Salakia, you know what I'm saying? Matter of fact, no Salakia, we got two devils today. We got Bonnie and Clyde, two infamous bank robbers. You understand, that got famous for doing what white people do, robbing and stealing. Slack. Once again. All right, so as of right now, I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen. I'm gonna hit you with the Wikipedia of these two devils, right? Make sure y'all can see this. Bonnie and Clyde, right? So this is the picture of both of the devils together. You understand? Right. Bonnie Parker and Clyde Barrow, sometimes between 1932 and 1934, when their exploits in Arkansas included murder, robbery, and kidnapping. Contrary to belief, the two never married. They were in a long-standing relationship, posing in front of their 1932 Ford V8 automobile. All right. They loved that Ford V8, you know what I'm saying, of that time. Of course, because that new V8 engine at that time, it enabled them, right, sis? It enabled them to, get make away with that loot in hot pursuit. You know what I'm saying? So let's get into it, right? So let me see how they got this set up. Okay, so we're gonna talk about the she devil first, and then we're gonna talk about her mate. Bonnie Elizabeth Parker. Sounds like a nice white woman's name, huh? October 1st, 1910 to May 23rd, 1934, right? Now, damn, this devil died young. And Clyde Chestnut Champion Barrow, March 24th, 1909 to May 23rd, 1934. So these devils died young, you know what I'm saying? Where American outlaws, excuse me, who traveled to central United States with their gang during the Great Depression. Salakia, give me 1 second. Salakia. They were two American outlaws who traveled the central United States with their gang during the Great Depression, right? Committing a series of criminal acts such as bank robberies, kidnappings, and murders between 1932 and 1934. And if you know anything about the Great Depression, right, this is the period. This is a period after slavery where Caucasians didn't have any slaves any goddamn more. So, their empire began to crumble. You feel me? As far as their own neighborhoods, because they had no goddamn skills. Blacks, Latinos, and Native American Indians worked for them at this time for what, the past 150 years or so. You understand? So when with the abolishment of slavery, right, and them having nobody to do their work for them, Caucasians in America in turn began to embark on a period called the Great Depression, while Blacks, Latinos, and Native American Indians were thriving for the most part in America, right? So during the Great Depression, you got a lot of poor white folks. And what they doing is they doing exactly what Bonnie and Clyde is doing. Now, Bonnie and Clyde is not the only famous bank robbers at this time. Last week, well, Salakia, I believe 2 weeks ago, I just did an episode on John Dillinger. You understand? It was a lot of people like John Dillinger, Babyface Nelson, Bonnie and Clyde. You understand? And during this time, the FBI began to hire a lot of poor, disenfranchised white boys, and started to allow them to be policemen in different in different police agencies. You understand? In order to combat the crime that was going on in America, which was bank robbery that was at an all-time high at this time, right? In them hiring a lot of these white men to fight crime, it in turn curbed the crime because the white men at this time, I don't want to say at this time, the white man is the face of crime, but as far as being bank robbers and urban criminals at this time, this is before black people started getting the influx of drugs in our communities. This is when black people had places like Tulsa, Oklahoma. You understand? This is when Harlem was a hotbed for black talent, and you know, our neighborhoods were thriving for the most part. You understand? So the face of crime at this time in America was your average young white boy that was from somewhere in the Midwest. You understand that's a product of a family that fell on hard times because they didn't have niggas to work for them anymore. You understand? Or and also a lot of these trailer trash white boys that don't descend from people that actually own slaves. You understand? Both, right? So during this time, you had a lot of Caucasians that was poor, and what is a Caucasian man going to do? He's going to go back to his natural state of being, and his natural state of being is a criminal. It's a murderer. It's a thief, right? These dudes was kidnapping people, bank robberies, so forth and so on, right? The couple was known for their bank robberies and multiple murders, although they preferred to rob small stores or rural gas stations, right? So they would rather rob a small store or a gas station because they're not gonna have too much of a trail on them, because this is not a big business or something that the FBI will come at you over. You understand? But they still would do it too, right? Salakia. And one more thing, that just shows you the spirit, the cowardice spirit of Caucasians. You understand? They would rather rob small gas stations in rural areas or small stores, you understand? Because these are like mom and pop shops. They won't have necessarily a fight on their hands if they go rob the average citizen. The reason why they wasn't too really fond of robbing banks, because banks got security guards in it. You know what I'm saying? They got people that will put up a fight behind that money. Even though they can go get a whole lot of money, they would rather just take the easy route and rob a mom and pop shop in a rural area or a small gas station, you understand, to make their chances easier with getting away with their ill-gotten funds. Their exploits captured the attention of the American press and its readership during what is occasionally referred to as the public enemy era between 1931 and 1934. And of course, Caucasian people are public enemies, but they called this the public enemy era because these people were robbing banks that had the public's money in there. Now, I'm not sure exactly how the banking system worked back then. Don't quote me on this, but this is early on in the United States history, right? So I'm sure a lot of these banks, they'll probably get robbed, and then a person would try to go withdraw some of their money, and the bank would be like, hey, bro, we ain't got it. They took your money. You know what I'm saying? So this is why they was called the public enemy, because not only was they robbing these banks and the people that own the banks was taking losses, but the people that actually were a part of the public kept their money in these banks, and they took losses as well. They were ambushed by police and shot dead in Beanville Parish, Louisiana. they are believed to have murdered at least 9 police officers and 4 civilians. God damn, Salakia. The 1967 film Bonnie and Clyde, directed by Arthur Penn and starring Warren Beatty and Faye Dunaway in the title roles, was a critical and commercial success, which revived interest in the criminals and glamorized them with a romantic aura. The 2019 Netflix film The Highwaymen depicted their manhunt from the point of viewing from the point of view of the man pursuing lawmen. And if you look at the screen right here, that's the picture of the movie The Highwaymen. And the reason why these movies around Bonnie and Clyde are successful movies that made a lot of money off of this story is because America loves crime because America was built off of crime, right? It's just simple as that. This is what these white people do all throughout history. You know what I'm saying? So let's talk about the she-devil first, Bonnie Parker. Bonnie Elizabeth Parker was born 1910 in Rowena, Texas, the second of 3 children. Her father, Charles Robert Parker, 1884 to 1914, was a bricklayer who died when Bonnie was 4 years old. Her widowed mother, Emma Cross Parker, 1885 to 1944, moved her family back to her parents' home in Cement City, an industrial suburb in West Dallas, where she worked as a seamstress. As an adult, Bonnie wrote poems such as The Story of Suicidal Sal. God damn, this bro was crazy. And the Trail's End, the latter more commonly known as The Story of Bonnie and Clyde. Parker was a bright child who thrived on attention. She enjoyed performing on stage and dreamt of becoming an actress. In her second year in high school, Parker met Roy Thornton, 1908 to 1937. The couple dropped out of school and married on September 25th, 1926, 6 days before her 16th birthday. Excuse me. Their marriage was marred by his frequent absences and brushes with the law, and proved to be short-lived. They never divorced, but their paths never crossed again after January 1929. Excuse me. Parker was still wearing the wedding ring Thornton had given her when she died. Thornton was in prison, and when he heard of her death, commenting, "I'm glad they jumped out like they did. It's much better than being caught." Sentenced to 5 years for robbery in 1933, and after attempting several prison breaks from other facilities, Thornton was killed while trying to escape from Huntsville State Prison on October 3rd, 1937. So not only did she deal with Clyde in the latter years, she was actually married to a goddamn criminal and a bank robber. Like this is what was going on with white America at this time. You understand? These Caucasians, they don't have the wherewithal to get anything honestly, right? This is their nature, right? The Lord created these people just to be the exact people that they are: robbers, thieves, murderers. You understand? So forth and so on. And this is their culture. And this and another thing too I want to add, right? I say this periodically during these series. I don't talk about these criminals to glorify the lifestyle that they live. You understand? I don't talk about these criminals to shine a light on how good they had it as criminals for the short amount of time that they were criminals, or a long amount of time that they was criminals. What I do with this series is the reason for me teaching these classes on this series and this particular topic is because Blacks, Latinos, and Native American Indians, we have been brainwashed into believing that criminality is Black culture when it's totally the opposite. You understand? When you look at George Washington, when you look at Abraham Lincoln, When you look at Christopher Columbus, Amerigo Vespucci, the so-called founding fathers of this country, you understand, before Bonnie and Clyde, these dudes was criminals. America is stolen land. You understand? It's literally named after a Caucasian man. Caucasians don't come from the Western Hemisphere. You understand? They come from the Caucasus Mountains of Georgia, Russia. That's why they're called Caucasians. Now, we can go further into their history and figure out that they Esau and they actually really come from the Middle East. But I'm talking about as far as them building up themselves to be the nation that they are known to be today as Caucasians. And I don't give a damn what you are. You could be a Jewish man. You understand? You could be from Albania. You could be from Italy. You could be from Spain. You could be from Russia. All of y'all are Caucasian people. All of y'all come from the Caucasus Mountains of Georgia, Russia. This is where y'all was exiled out. You understand? And this is where y'all came from, entering back into society to steal everything on planet Earth like you have been doing for the past 1,000 years. Salakia. But I put together this series so Blacks, Latinos, and Native American Indians, especially the young men, you understand? For us to understand that the culture of being a criminal has been taught to us by these people. You understand? People like Bonnie and Clyde, people like George Washington. You understand? People like Lucky Luciano, John Dillinger. These are your great criminals. And Lord allow next week, I'm probably going to do it on the opium wars. You understand? And show you that being a drug dealer is Caucasian culture. That don't come from our people. That comes from Esau and how his people came to conquer the world. But Salakia. After she left Thornton, Parker moved back in with her mother and worked as a waitress in Dallas. One of her regular customers was postal worker Ted Hinton. In 1932, he joined the Dallas County Sheriff's Department and eventually served as a member of the posse that killed Bonnie and Clyde. Would you look at that? One of her co-workers then eventually ended up downing her. Parker briefly kept a diary early in 1929 when she was age 18, writing of her loneliness, her impatience with life in Dallas, and her love for photography. Okay, so that's a little brief history of her beginning of life. Clyde Barrow. Clyde Chestnut Barrow was born 1909 into a poor farming family in the town of Tellico in Ellis County, Texas. He was the fifth of 7 children of Henry Basil Barrow and Cumi Talitha Walter. The family moved to Dallas in the early 1920s as part of a wider migration pattern from rural areas to the city, where many settled in the urban slum of West Dallas. Now they settled in the urban slum of West Dallas. We talking about the 1920s, right? When you look at black neighborhoods in the 1920s, for the most part, we didn't have ghettos. You understand? Black people was thriving in that, like in the 1920s. This is why it was called the Roaring 20s. Black people was thriving at this time. You understand? But you got people that come from families like Clyde Barrow, right? That lived in the slums. You understand that lived in less fortunate conditions. And the reason why is because Caucasian people are not like, that's how it's supposed to be. When you look at the history of America, right? Blacks, Latinos, and Native American Indians, especially the natives and the Latinos, right? The natives and Latinos, this is their homeland. Ain't no way in goddamn hell no Mexican should be on the side of the freeway in California selling oranges to feed his damn family when you got white men who are the face of this country with suits on, jumping off of private jets, making $100 million deals, billion and $1 trillion deals. That's not how it's supposed to go. Donald Trump is supposed to be in the goddamn slums. Elon Musk is supposed to be in the goddamn slum somewhere. But the spirit of these Caucasian men, right, and them want to take, this is exactly what fell on young Clyde Barrow. He grew up in the slums and he wasn't having it. You understand? They don't know honest day's work. They knew they couldn't pull themselves up by their bootstraps by just going along to get along. You understand? So Clyde picked up that goddamn gun and started robbing stuff. This is what they do. Salakia. The Barrows spent their first months in West Dallas living under their wagon until they got enough money to buy a tent. Damn, Salakia. Good for him. Barrow was first arrested in 1926 at age 17 after running when police confronted him over a rental car that he had failed to return on time. His second arrest was with his brother Buck Barrow soon after for possession of stolen turkeys. Barrow had some legitimate jobs from 1927 through 1929, but he also cracked safes, robbed stores, and stole cars. This was his life. He was a criminal. He met 19-year-old Parker through a mutual friend in January 1930, and they spent much time together during the following weeks. Their romance was interrupted when Barrow was arrested by Dallas County Sheriff's deputy Bert Wisnand and convicted of auto theft. He escaped from McLennan County Jail in Waco, Texas on March 11, 1930, using a gun Parker smuggled into the jail. Recaptured on May 18th, Barrow was sent to Huntsville State Prison in April 1930, and in September, he was assigned to the Eastham Prison Farm at the age of 21. He was sexually assaulted while in prison, and he retaliated by attacking and killing his tormentor with a pipe, crushing his skull. This was his first murder. Another inmate who was already serving a life sentence claimed responsibility. Crazy. Man, that's deep. So this dude, he got sexually assaulted in prison. I bet you that left a chip on his shoulder. You understand? To avoid hard labor in the fields, Barrow purposely had two of his toes amputated in late January 1932, either by another inmate or by himself. God damn, this dude hated work so much. He got two of his toes amputated so he wouldn't have to get out there in them fields while serving time in prison. Because they got chain gangs down there in the South. And I believe they still do it in many parts of the South. Because of this, he walked with the limp for the rest of his life. However, without his knowledge, Barrow's mother had already successfully petitioned for his release, and he was set free 6 days after his intentional injury. Salakia. So this dude purposely got his toes cut off, right? Because he hates a hard day work that much. So he would go injure himself that extremely, not knowing his mama already put a petition in for him to be released. And 6 days after he got his toes cut off, he get paroled. Salakia. He was paroled from Eastham on February 2nd, 1932. Now a hardened and bitter criminal. Of course, he's a hardened and bitter criminal. This dude then lost his toes, got his manhood taken, and now he's back on the streets. His sister Marie says something awful sure must have happened to him in prison because he wasn't the same person when he got out. Fellow inmate Ralph Foltz said that he watched Clyde change from a schoolboy to a rattlesnake. In his post-Etham career, Barrel robbed grocery stores and gas stations at a rate far outpacing the 10 or so bank robberies attributed to him in the barrel gang. His favorite weapon was the M 1918 Browning automatic rifle, BAR. According to John Neal Phillips, Barrow's goal in life was not to gain fame or fortune from robbing banks, but to seek revenge against the Texas prison system for the abuses that he sustained while serving time. The injuries slowed him down physically, making it harder to outrun law enforcement and limiting his mobility during his many robberies. Bet you he wish he would have kept them goddamn toes. Salakia. Oh, let me go to these comments. Hey, Matam Yai. Yaba Shim Al Shabrakata. Deandra says for sure. Yeah, Chestnut is crazy. Right. Definitely, they definitely a bunch of thugs. You know what I'm saying? Salakia. Let me get back into it. Whew, this is hilarious. Salakia. There are several different accounts of Parker and Barrow's first meeting. One of the more credible versions is that they met on January 5th, 1930, at the home of Barrow's friend, Clarence Clay, at 105 Herbert Street in West Dallas. Barrow was 20 years old and Parker was 19. Parker was out of work and staying with the female friend to assist her during her recovery from a broken arm. Barrow dropped by the girl's house while Parker was in the kitchen making hot chocolate. Now let's get into it. You know what I'm saying? Armed robbery and murder. 1932. Early robberies and murders, right? After Barrow's release from prison in 1932, he and Ralph Foltz began a series of robberies, primarily of stores and gas stations. Their goal was to collect enough money and firepower to launch a raid against Eastham Prison. God damn, this dude was crazy. He trying to go to war with the prison that he just served time in. On April 19th, Parker and Foltz were captured in a failed hardware store burglary in Kaufman, in which they had intended to steal firearms. Salakia. Parker was released from jail after a few months when the grand jury failed to indict her. Foltz was tried, convicted, and served time. He never rejoined the gang. Parker wrote poetry to pass the time in Kaufman County Jail and reunited with Barrow within a few weeks of her release. On April 30th, Barrow was the getaway driver in a robbery in Hillsborough, during which store owner J.N. Butcher was shot and killed. Butcher's wife identified Barrow from police photographers as one of the shooters, although he had stayed inside the car. They was on one. August 5th, Barrow, Raymond Hamilton, and Ross Dyer were drinking moonshine at a country dance in Stringtown, Oklahoma, when Sheriff C.G. Maxwell and Deputy Eugene C. Moore, Salakia, approached them in the parking lot. Barrow and Hamilton opened fire, killing Moore and gravely wounding Maxwell. Moore was the first law officer whom Barrow and his gang killed. They eventually murdered 9. Salakia. Whew. On October 11th, they allegedly killed Howard Hall at his story during a robbery during a robbery in Sherman, Texas, though some historians consider this unlikely. Now, when you look at what's going on today in the black community, you got a term called YNs. Bonnie and Clyde was the first YNs, Salakia. And the reason why I say that is because when you look at the stigma or the image of what a YN is, a YN is it's an acronym that means young nigga, right? But the image of a YN is a young, violent thug from the ghetto that's willing to shoot it out with their ops or the police. They robbing, they killing. This Bonnie and Clyde. They came from less fortunate backgrounds. They robbing shit, excuse my French. You know what I'm saying? They sliding, they shooting it out with the police. You know what I'm saying? Like to all my YNs out there, or the brothers and sisters that believe they YNs, you have nothing on these people. As a matter of fact, crime is not even our goddamn culture, so we not good at it. We always get caught doing shit like this. Like, Bonnie and Clyde was successful at doing this type of stuff because this is what they supposed to do, even though it didn't even last that long for them. But it's going to last way longer for them than it would for one of us, because this ain't what the hell we supposed to be indulging in. This their life, not ours. W.D. Jones had been a friend of Barrow's family since childhood. He joined Parker and Barrow on Christmas Eve, 1936, at the age of 16, and the three left Dallas that night. The next day, Christmas Day, 1932, Jones and Barrow murdered Doyle Johnson, a young family man, while stealing his car in Temple. These dudes was cowards. They murdered a young family man just to steal his car. He like this. He's a family man. He's trying to take care of his business to be able to give his family a better life. And what these devils do, they rock up on him. You know what I'm saying? Barrow, Clyde, he about what, 22, 23, something like that, with a 16-year-old accomplice. And they smoke, bro. Take his car. Barrow killed Tarrant County Deputy Malcolm Davis on January 6, 1933, when he, Parker, and Jones wandered into a police trap set for another criminal. The gang had murdered 5 people since April. Buck and Blanche of Barrow joined the gang. So this nigga family get to join in the gang. Whew. On March 22nd, 1933, Clyde's brother Buck was granted a full pardon in police and released from prison. Excuse me. He and his wife Blanche set up housekeeping with Bonnie, Clyde, and Jones in a temporary hideout at 3347 and a half Oak Ridge Drive in Joplin, Missouri. According to family sources, Buck and Blanche were there to visit. They attempted to persuade Clyde to surrender to law enforcement. The group ran loud, alcohol-fueled card games late in the night in the quiet neighborhood. Blanche recalled that they bought a case of beer a day. The men came and went noisily at all hours, and Clyde accidentally fired a Browning automatic rifle in the apartment while cleaning it. No neighbors went to the house, but one reported suspicions to Joplin Police Department. These they was robbers. They was like living that life. You know what I'm saying, so to speak. They was like this. This is the epitome of the street life. Like you gotta think about it too. Like, this is the 1930s. We don't have gangs in the black community. These are the gangs that's in America at this time, right? You got bands of criminals and robbers getting high, getting drunk, having card games, you know what I'm saying? Shootouts with the police, the type of stuff that you can watch on the evening news in the black community that's talking about black people in the 80s and the 90s. Well, 50, 60 years before that started happening in our communities, white people been doing all of that. You know what I'm saying? And even further back, right? The police assembled a 5-man force in 2 cars on April 13th to confront what they suspected were bootleggers living in the Oak Ridge Drive address. Living at the Oak Ridge Drive address, excuse me. The Barrow brothers and Jones opened fire, killing Deputy Harry L. McGinnis outright and fatally wounding Constable J.W. Harriman. Parker opened fire with the bar as the others fled, forcing Highway Patrol Sergeant G.B. Caller to duck behind a large oak tree. The 30 caliber bullets from the bar struck the tree and forced wood splinters into the sergeant's face. Ooh, wee. Parker got into the car with the others, and they pulled in Blanche from the street where she was pursuing her dog, Snowball. Hey, what are you doing? Oh, all right. Salakia. The surviving officers later testified that they had fired only 14 rounds in the conflict. One hit Jones on the side, one struck Clyde, but was deflected by his suit coat button, and one grazed Buck after ricocheting off a wall. The group escaped the police at Joplin, but left behind most of their possessions at the apartment, including Buck's parole papers, 3 weeks old, a large arsenal of weapons, a handwritten poem by Bonnie, and a camera with several rolls of undeveloped film. Police developed the film at the Joplin Globe and found many photos of Barrow, Parker, and Jones posing and pointing weapons at one of. Come on, man. You can't, look at some of these young niggas' Instagrams today. Look at what's going on with social media, and go look at a drill rapper's video. Go look at a drill rapper's video today. What you see right now in 2025 on YouTube of a drill rapper, they found these same images in a camera in the 1930s of Bonnie and Clyde and their partners while they robbing banks. They was taking pictures with guns, pointing them at each other, and you know what I'm saying? Like, this is what they was doing in the 30s, man. This their lifestyle, not ours. Oh, hey, Aguafi and y'all hella funny. Oh, I gotta read some of these. He couldn't stand 10 toes down, literally. He stood 8 toes down. Slacky. Says that fool probably cut off his toe. Says that fool probably cut both his toes off. I bet Esau will try that again. Nah, hey, Deandra, sis, you right. I would not doubt it. I think he gonna be in the shed with some pliers trying to have at them toes. He better not, man. Look, if he on my slave plantation, I'm gonna watch him cut his toes. I'm gonna help him. Then tell him still get his ass out there in the field. So like it. The water to y'all for tapping in with me too. I'm glad y'all having a good time in this class, man. Most High in Christ. Okay, where was we at? The Globe sent the poem and the photos over to the Newswire, including a photo of Parker clenching a cigar in her teeth and a pistol in her hand. Ain't that what's going on in these music videos today with these so-called YNs? They got a cigar full of weed right now, you know what I'm saying, in one hand and holding a pistol in another hand. Well, this is what they was doing in the 30s. The Barrow gang subsequently became front page news throughout America. The photo of Parker posing with a cigar and a gun became popular. In his book, Go Down Together, The True Untold Story of Bonnie and Clyde, writer Jeff Gwynn noted John Dillinger had matinee idol had matinee idol good looks, and Pretty Boy Floyd had the best possible nickname. But Joplin photos included new criminal superstars with the most titillating, so like I don't even know if I said that word right, trademark of it all, illicit sex. Clyde Barrow and Bonnie Parker were wild and young and undoubtedly slept together. Oh man. So they had some kinky stuff going on in them photos too, huh? The group ranged from Texas as far north as Minnesota for the next 3 months. In May, they tried to rob the bank in Lucerne, Indiana, and robbed the bank in Okabena, Minnesota. They kidnapped Dillard Darby and Sophia Stone at Ruston, Louisiana, in the course of stealing Darby's car. This was one of several events between 1932 and 1934 in which they kidnapped police officers or robbery victims. They usually released their hostages far from home, sometimes with money to help them return. They had a heart, huh? They had some compassion on their victims. Crazy. Stories of such encounters made headlines, as did the more violent episodes. The Barrow gang did not hesitate to shoot anyone who got in their way, whether it was a police officer or an innocent civilian. Other members of the gang who committed murder included Hamilton, Jones, Buck, and Henry Methvin. Eventually, the cold-bloodedness of their murders opened the public's eyes to the reality of their crimes and led to their ends. The photos entertained the public for a time, but the gang was desperate and discontented, as described by Blanche in her account written while in prison in the late 1930s. With their new notoriety, their daily lives became more difficult as they tried to evade discovery. Restaurants and motels became less secure. They resorted to campfire cooking and bathing in cold streams. Ooh, they was on the lam. They unrelieved round the clock approximately of 5 people in one car gave rise to vicious bickering. Jones was the driver when he and Barrow stole a car belonging to Darby in late April. Excuse me. And he used that car to leave the others. He stayed away until June 8th. Barrow failed to see warning signs at a bridge under construction on June 10th while driving with Jones and Parker near Wellington, Texas, and the car flipped into a ravine. Sources disagree on whether there was a gasoline fire or if Parker was doused with acid from the car's battery under the floorboards, but she sustained third-degree burns to her right leg, so severe that the muscles contracted and caused the leg to draw up, Jones observed. She'd been burned so bad, none of us thought she was going to live. The hide of her right leg was gone from her hip down to her ankle. I could see the bone at places. Ugh. Got rough out there. Parker could hardly walk. She either hopped on her good leg or was carried by Barrow. She got help from a nearby farm family. They kidnapped Collinsworth County Sheriff George Corey and City Marshal Paul Hardy, leaving the two of them handcuffed and barbed wire to a tree outside Eric, Oklahoma. The three rendezvoused with Buck and Blanche and hid in a tourist cart near Fort Smith, Arkansas, nursing Parker's burns. Buck and Jones bungled a robbery and murdered Town Marshal Henry D. Humphrey in Alma, Arkansas. The criminals had to flee despite Parker's grave condition. Plate City. In July 1933, the gang checked into the Red Crown Tourist Court, south of Plate City, Missouri. It consisted of 2 brick cabins joined by garages, and the gang rented both. To the south stood the Red Crown Tavern, a popular restaurant among Missouri highway patrolmen, and the gang seemed to go out of their way to draw attention. Blanche registered the party as 3 guests, but owner Neil Hauser could see 5 people getting out of the car. He noted that the driver backed into the garage, gangster style, for a quick getaway. Man, look, the culture of so-called YNs is something that's learned from Caucasian people. If you live in a ghetto and there's a liquor store in your neighborhood, right? When you got people that live a certain type of lifestyle, you understand that's involved in criminality. When they go to and of course we do this in the UPK too, but we do it for security purposes, not for the same purposes as somebody that's living out there in the streets. But he noticed, right, when they pulled up to the Red Crown Tourist Court to park their car in the garage, he noticed that they backed in instead of pulling forward in, because in those times, the only people that was looking for a smooth getaway or easy access to get up out of there was gangsters, was thugs. You know what I'm saying? So this dude that was checking them into their rooms, he noticed that, right? Blanche paid for their cabins with coins rather than bills, and did the same later when buying 5 dinners and 5 beers. The next day, Hauser noticed that his guests had taped newspapers over the windows of their cabin. Excuse me. Blanche paid for 5 meals with coins. Her outfit of Jodhpur riding breeches also attracted attention. They were not typical attire for women in the area, and eyewitnesses still remember from 40 years later. Hauser told Captain William Baxter of the Highway Patrol, a patron of his restaurant, about the group. So Hauser, he's looking at these strange people like, females don't wear that shit over here. They didn't pull their car in backwards like on some gangster shit. Man, let me let one of these highway patrolmen know. Barrow and Jones went into town to purchase bandages, crackers, cheese, and atropine sulfate to treat Parker's legs. The druggist contacted, Sheriff Holt Coffey, who put their cabins under surveillance. Coffey had been alerted by Oklahoma, Texas, and Arkansas law enforcement to watch for strangers seeking such supplies. The sheriff contacted Captain Baxter, who called for reinforcements from Kansas City, including an armored car. Sheriff Coffey led a group of officers towards the cabin at 11 p.m. on July 20th, 1933, armed with Thompson submachine guns. Like you. In the gunfight that ensued, the officer's 45 caliber Thompson proved no match for Barrow's 30 caliber bar. Stolen on July 7th from the National Guard Armory at Enid, Oklahoma. The gang escaped with the bullet short circuited. The game escaped when a bullet short circuited the horn on the armored car, and the police officers mistook it for a ceasefire signal. They did not pursue the retreating Barrow vehicle. Excuse me. The gang had evaded the law once again, but Buck had been wounded by a bullet that blasted a large hole in the bone of his forehead. Damn. And exposed his injured brain. Blanche was also nearly blinded by glass fragments. Salakia. Yeah, they had a lot going on. You know what I'm saying? Mm. Nah, for sure, sis. Nah, of course, yeah, we, in the UPK, we back in everywhere, you know what I'm saying, for security purposes. But back then, you understand, um, yeah, people wasn't doing that on a regular basis. And of course, us being black people, we most likely in our own neighborhoods wouldn't even think to have to back in somewhere because it wasn't dangerous for us in our own neighborhoods. You understand? But it definitely was part of the way of life of a criminal at that time. Salakia. Dexfield Park. The Barrel Gang camped at Dexfield Park, an abandoned amusement park near Dexter, Iowa, on July 24th, 1933. Buck was sometimes semi-cautious, and he even talked and ate. But his massive head wound and loss of blood were so severe that Barrow and Jones dug a grave for him. Oh, they knew he was going to die. Residents noticed their bloody bandages, and officers determined that the campers were the Barrow Gang. Local police officers and approximately 100 spectators surrounded the group, and the Barrows soon came under fire. Barrow, Parker, and Jones escaped on foot. Buck was shot in the back, and he and his wife were captured by officers. Buck died on his head wound and pneumonia after surgery 5 days later at King's Daughters Hospital in Perry, Iowa. For the next 6 weeks, the remaining perpetrators ranged far afield from their usual area of operations, west of Colorado, north to Minnesota, southeast to Mississippi. Yet they continued to commit armed robberies. They restocked their arsenal when Barrow and Jones robbed an armory on August 20th at Platteville, Illinois, acquiring 3 bars, handguns, and a large quantity of ammunition. By early September, the gang risked a run to Dallas to see their families for the first time in 4 months. Jones parted company with them, continuing to Houston, where his mother had moved. He was arrested there without incident on November 16th and returned to Dallas. Through the autumn, Barrow committed several robberies with small-time local accomplices, while his family and Parker's attended to her considerable medical needs. On November 22nd, they narrowly evaded arrest while trying to meet with family members near Sowers, Texas. Dallas Sheriff Smoot skimmed, Slagia, hope I pronounced that right, Deputy Bob Alcorn and Deputy Ted Hinton lay in wait nearby. As Barrow drove up, he sensed a trap and drove past his family's car, at which point Skimid and his deputies stood up and opened fire with machine guns and a bar. The family members in the crossfire were not hit, but a bar bullet passed through the car, striking the legs of both Barrow and Parker. They escaped later that night. On November 28th, a Dallas grand jury delivered a murder indictment against Parker and Barrow for the killing. In January of that year, nearly 10 months earlier, of Tarrant County Deputy Malcolm Davis. It was Parker's first warrant for murder. 1934, final run. On January 16, 1934, Barrow orchestrated the escape of Hamilton, Methvin, and several others in the Easton breakout. The brazen raid generated negative publicity for Texas, and Barrow seemed to have achieved what historian Phillips suggested was his overriding goal: revenge on the Texas Department of Corrections. Barrow gang member Joe Palmer shot Major Joe Cauasus during his escape, and Cauasus died a few days later in the hospital. This attack attached the full power of the Texas and federal government to the manhunt for Barrow and Parker. As Cauasus struggled for life, prison chief Lee Simmons reportedly promised him that all persons involved in the breakout would be hunted down and killed. All of them eventually were, except Methvin, who preserved his life by turning on the gang and setting up the ambush of Barrow and Parker. You know, honor amongst thieves. This dude, Methvin, they went to go break this dude out, and he ended up snitching on their ass. The Texas Department of Corrections contacted former Texas Ranger Captain Frank Hamer, and persuaded him to hunt down the Barrow gang. He was retired, but his commission had not expired. He accepted the assignment as a Texas Highway Patrol officer, secondarily assigned to the prison system as a special investigator, and was given the specific task of taking down the Barrow gang. Hamer was tall, burly, and taciturn, unimpressed by authority, and driven by an inflexible adherence to right, or what he thinks is right. For 20 years, he had been feared and admired throughout Texas as the walking embodiment of the one riot, one ranger ethos. He had acquired a formidable reputation as a result of several spectacular captures and the shooting of a number of Texas criminals. He was officially credited with 53 kills and suffered 17 wounds. This dude was a goddamn vigilante. He had 53 bodies and been shot 17 times. They needed him to come get these crazy white boys. Prison boss Simmons always said publicly that Hamer had been his first choice, although there is evidence that he first approached two other rangers, both of whom declined because they were reluctant to shoot a woman. Starting on February 10th, Hamer became the constant shadow of Barrow and Parker, living out of his cars just a town or two behind them. Three of Hamer's four brothers were also Texas Rangers. Brother Harrison was the best shot of the four, but Frank was considered the most tenacious. So like I'm gonna drop down. Excuse me, Salaki, I'm still getting over this flu, man. I'm gonna just jump down to the to them being captured. By May 1934, Barrow had 16 warrants outstanding against him for multiple counts of robbery, auto theft, escape, assault, and murder in 4 states. Hamer, who had begun tracking the gang on February 12th, led the posse. Slovakia. Oh, man. I'm going to go ahead and read this last part, and then I'm going to go ahead and end this. Lucky I'm still up under the weather. At approximately 9:15 a.m. on May 23rd, the posse was still concealed in the bushes and almost ready to give up when they heard a vehicle approaching at high speed. In their official report, they stated they persuaded Methvin, to position his truck on the shoulder of the road that morning. They hoped Barrow would stop to speak with him, putting his vehicle close to the posse's position in the bushes. The vehicle proved to be the Ford 8 with Barrow at the wheel, and he slowed down his hope. The 6 lawmen opened fire while the vehicle was still moving. Oakley fired first, probably before any order to do so. Barrow was shot in the head and died instantly from Oakley's first shot, and Hinton reported hearing Parker scream. The officers fired about 130 rounds, emptying each of their weapons into the car. The two had survived several bullet wounds over the years in their confrontations with the law. On this day, any of Bonnie Parker's and Clyde's wounds would have proven to be fatal. So eventually, they got caught, you know what I'm saying, and suffered the fate of, being unalived, living a life of crime. Salakia. I'm going to go in and end it early. Salakia, the water to y'all for tapping in with me. Still feeling under the weather. Make sure y'all tune in next week for another episode of Criminals of the Caucasus. You know what I'm saying? Yahba Shem Al Rock a thumb to the brothers. Yahba Shamal a thumb by Shem Al to the sisters. The water, everybody, for tapping in. Most High Christ, the water says I appreciate it. Make sure y'all, if y'all haven't, go check out the previous episodes of Criminals of the Caucasus. And once again, I apologize for cutting it short this week. I'm just feeling way too much under the weather. I'll get with y'all next week. Shalom, Israel.